sky beast. It began with a whisper. The wind had been howling through the mountains for hours, as if the earth itself was breathing in a restless rhythm. A family of 4, parents Sarah and Jack, and their 2 children, Emma and Luke, sat around the campfire, their faces lit by the flickering orange glow. They had come to these mountains for peace, for an escape from the noise of everyday life. They needed to reconnect with nature, to slow down and breathe in the pure mountain air. But the mountains had secrets. The first sign of trouble came at dusk. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of blood red and purple, Sarah stood up from the fire and scanned the sky. There was something off. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, like the atmosphere itself had changed. Something wasn't right. At first, it was just a shadow passing over the mountain peaks, a fleeting movement that barely registered. But it was enough to make Sarah pause, her eyes narrowing as she searched the sky. "Did you see that?" she asked Jack, her voice quiet but filled with unease. Jack glanced up from his phone, blinking against the fading light. "See what?" "Something moved up there," Sarah replied, pointing to the sky, just above the peaks. It was fast. Jack didn't answer at first, but Emma, who had been playing with a stick near the fire, stopped and looked up. "What's that?" she asked. A dark shape appeared overhead, cutting across the fading light like a razor through silk. It was massive, too massive for a bird, too fast for any plane. Emma's voice trembled as she asked again, "What is that?" The shape grew larger, its form more defined. Jack stood up slowly, his face tightening as he squinted into the sky. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't anything they had ever seen before. Its wings stretched wide, leathery and dark, casting a large shadow over the camp. The creature was massive, its wingspan at least 30 feet. It had a sleek, terrifying silhouette, and the way it moved through the sky was unlike anything they could imagine. "I don't know," Jack muttered, a chill crawling up his spine. Another shape appeared, then another. The sky above them filled with the dark shadows of creatures circling the mountain, their wings flapping in a rhythmic pulse. They were not birds. The shape of them, the movement, the sheer size, all of it was wrong. The creatures soared above the campsite, drifting in and out of the clouds, like ancient beasts reclaiming the sky. "Dad, what's going on?" Luke asked, his voice quivering. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she watched one of the creatures dive lower, its enormous wings cutting through the air with terrifying precision. Its head was long and tapered, its mouth filled with sharp, jagged teeth. It had the appearance of a pterodactyl, but there was something far darker, far more sinister in its presence. "This isn't right," Sarah whispered, her voice strained. The creatures circled lower, their movements becoming more deliberate. There were at least 5 now, their enormous bodies blocking out the moonlight. The shadows they cast were monstrous, bigger than anything they had seen in the natural world. And as the creatures passed over the campsite again, a sudden realization struck Sarah with a cold, paralyzing fear. They weren't flying in a natural pattern. They were hunting. Her mind raced as she scanned the surrounding trees, her pulse quickening. The creatures above them weren't just circling. They were waiting for something. And they were getting closer. "Jack, we need to go," Sarah said, her voice tight with panic. "What? Now?" Jack asked, his face pale. He looked at the children, who were huddled together, wide-eyed and terrified. "They're circling us," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "They're getting closer." Jack turned to look up again, his eyes narrowing as he saw the creatures descending rapidly, their wings cutting through the air like blades. One of the creatures dove straight down, its wings folding back as it sped toward the earth, and the sound of the wind rushing around its massive body was deafening. "Move!" Jack shouted, grabbing Emma's arm and pulling her close. "Get to the car now!" The family bolted toward their parked SUV, the cold mountain air stinging their faces as they sprinted. But before they could reach the vehicle, the creatures above them began their descent. One of them came crashing down, landing just a few feet in front of them with a terrifying roar. Its long claws scraped against the ground as it screeched, revealing its terrible mouth full of sharp teeth, saliva dripping from its fangs. Sarah screamed and pulled Emma into her arms, but it was too late. The creature's screech filled the air, sending a wave of terror through her. She turned and ran with everything she had, dragging Emma behind her. The creature followed, its massive body moving faster than anything in the world. Its wings snapped open, sending gusts of wind that knocked Sarah off her feet. Jack turned to look, his heart pounding in his chest, but the creature was already upon them. It leapt forward with terrifying speed, its claws outstretched, and in one swift movement, it swiped at Jack, its claws tearing through his shirt and raking across his back. Jack cried out in pain, but kept running. The other creatures were closing in. They were hunting them, their cries echoing through the mountain air. The family had become prey. "Get in the car!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw with fear. She reached the vehicle first, throwing open the door and shoving Emma inside. Luke climbed in next, his eyes wide and filled with terror. Sarah turned back, watching Jack as he ran toward the car, but the creature was too close. Its eyes locked onto him, and in a flash, it swooped down. Jack barely had time to react as the creature's talons grabbed hold of him, lifting him off the ground. Sarah screamed in horror as she watched the creature fly off with Jack in its grasp. The car's engine roared to life as Sarah slammed her foot down on the pedal, but she could hardly see through the tears blurring her vision. She couldn't leave Jack behind. She couldn't let him go. But the creature had him now, and there was nothing she could do. She looked in the rearview mirror, her chest heavy with grief and fear. But the only thing she saw was the flicker of shadows in the sky above. The creatures had gathered, their forms silhouetted against the darkening sky. And as Sarah sped away from the campsite, she could hear the screeching cries of the beasts, echoing across the mountains, hungry, relentless, and waiting. Hours later, Sarah and her children were miles away, hiding in a small town at the foot of the mountains. They had parked their car at the edge of the town, away from the main road, too terrified to go anywhere else. The forest was silent now, but the sounds of the creatures, those horrible, eerie screeches, still rang in her ears. Her heart ached with the loss of Jack, but she knew that they couldn't stay. They had to leave, or they would be next. As they sat in the car, trying to process what had happened, Emma spoke, her voice quiet but certain. "Mom," she whispered, "they're still out there, aren't they?" Sarah looked at her daughter, tears brimming in her eyes. "Yes, Emma," she whispered back. "They're still out there." and they're waiting. The creatures in the sky hadn't just been hunting. They had been hunting them, and they weren't finished yet. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, Zone 6 Broadcast, for more terrifying tales released weekly. Thank you for watching. It truly means a lot. This was just one of 24 short stories from my book, Beyond the Campsite, available worldwide on Amazon.